Welcome to another edition of God Hockey. Today, I talked to puck stopper turned crime stopper, Mike Mull. Mike's path to pro hockey was an unconventional one, and he tells us how it was his father dropping $50 on a TV tryout that helped pave the way. So without further ado, let's head to episode 9 with Mike Mull. All right, so welcome back to another edition of God Hockey. Today is episode 9, and I've got one of Halton Region's finest, but we're here to talk about goaltending today. So please welcome to the show, Michael Mull, everybody.
Hey, Dana, thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for joining. It's great to have you on. I know we've talked a few times about doing this, so it's good to have you on here. I think it's probably best if we do start at the beginning. So you've been a goalie for the majority of the way here. So let's talk about how you got started.
Well, I started at a young age. I grew up in New Brunswick on the east coast of Canada, and it's kind of a funny story. When my parents first tried to get me into hockey, my mom signed me up, tried to take me for a registration, and apparently I didn't like the rink. I thought it was dark and dingy, and I cried and screamed, and I said, "Get me out of here." So the first year I was scheduled to play hockey, I didn't end up playing, and then I ended up meeting some local neighborhood kids. We started playing kind of street hockey, and one of the young boys there, he's now the goalie coach for the St. Louis Blues, but his dad was a goalie at the time, and he had all the goalie gear in the basement. We used to practice taking shots on each other, and the one thing that kind of drew me to the position, like most goalies will tell you, it's the equipment. So that's what kind of drew me in at a young age, and still keeps me kind of interested and excited about the position. So
yeah, no, definitely that's one. It's always seems to be big on the list of things that brought you in. I know for me it was seeing Grant Fuhr behind the net, his mask. That was the first game I ever went to live was Leafs Oilers, and I was just sort of mystified by it. And the way I describe it is that when I started, I think I wanted to be a goalie more than I wanted to play hockey. And then it all just kind of took off from there. So in New Brunswick, so you eventually ended up in Ontario?
Yeah, I stayed. We lived in New Brunswick till I was about 12 years old, and then we moved to the Ottawa area. My father was RCMP, so we moved around a few times throughout New Brunswick before we finally settled in Ontario when he got transferred there. And I played my Pee Wee and Bantam and a year of Tier 2 in the Ottawa area before getting drafted and then going on to the Ontario Hockey League there, and first off in Mississauga. So that's kind of how we ended up in Ontario.
Nice. And you were part of the original Ice Dogs team. Was that the first season?
I was there the second season. So
second season
2000 was my first year. I was the second year that the franchise had a team. So
yeah, I took a look at a few of the numbers. They weren't great teams early on. I mean, we can talk a little bit about your time in Mississauga as a whole, but what is it like though when you do go to a team that is a bottom team and you need to function in your role, but along the way you sort of know that this is not going to be a top team, and then you have to kind of adjust your own mindset to that.
Yeah, I mean, the year of Tier 2, I played in the Ottawa area for the Gloucester Rangers. We were, I think, a last place team there as well. So I was used to getting a lot of shots and getting worked over pretty good every night. So I don't want to say I was used to it, but I had some experience with that, kind of a situation going into the OHL. And like you said, Mississauga was an expansion team, and there was definitely some growing pains there early on. But, it was in ways it was good for my development. I got to see a lot of shots. I got to play a lot of games as a young goalie. But again, losing takes its toll on you over the years. And
Right.
I stuck it out, 2.5 years there in Mississauga and kind of took my lumps. And in my third year, my 19-year-old year, I had an opportunity to go to Belleville. They had a really good team that was kind of underachieving at the time. And they made a couple moves at the trade deadline and brought in a few pieces, myself and Jason Spezza, who I played with in Mississauga as well. So, we were quite, we knew each other really well. So that made it kind of comfortable. So we went to Belleville at the same time. And then, that kind of rejuvenated my career a little bit going to Belleville. And we ended up having a really good end of the year there. And, it was good for me personally, and the team did really well. And I think that kind of turned things around for me at that point.
Yeah, and the next year was another good year for you too. So Matt Stajan, he's another guy who was on the team in Belleville with you. I had a chance to kind of go through that a little bit. Um, and then as you finish up in the OHL, undrafted, but you did get an invite to, I think it was Buffalo Sabres camp. So
Mhm.
you got to attend your first NHL camp. What it was that 03?
That would have been in '03, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And so what was that experience like?
It was good. Obviously, being undrafted, I had never gone to an NHL training camp before. So
Mm-hmm.
after my overage year in Belleville, I was fortunate enough to get the opportunity to go to Buffalo Sabres training camp as a free agent walk on. And it was good. It was a good experience. Obviously, never having done it before, not knowing what to expect, and it was a good experience. I had a really good training camp, and like most cases, Buffalo kind of had all their goalies slotted out throughout the organization,
Right.
so wasn't really any room for me at the time. And I'd already committed at that point to go to St. FX University in Antigonish, Nova Scotia. Had Buffalo not offered me a contract, and that was my plan. So, and that's just kind of how it worked out. Buffalo didn't really have room for me in the organization, and I soaked up as much as the experience as I could, and then I went off to St. FX University following training camp there. But it was a great experience, obviously, to be at the highest level and just to be around some of the elite players in the league and just kind of watch them closely and pick up on some of their habits and the way they kind of carry themselves on and off the ice. So it was a good experience for me, and picked up a lot of things there in that first NHL training camp for sure.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, like you said, even if you go there, knowing that it's a bit of a long shot, it's an organization that was pretty well stocked with some good goalies. But at least you can take what you can from it. You can use that to learn. So back out to the East Coast for a couple of seasons of university hockey, and
Yeah.
then how did you? So I saw like your first pro game was with Lowell. So how did you end up? So that Carolina affiliate.
Yeah, that was after my overage year had just come to a conclusion there in Belleville in the OHL, and Lowell had I think a couple injuries or a couple guys called up, and they needed a goalie to come down to finish off the last few games of the season. So again, we had just lost out in Belleville out of the playoffs, and I was pretty heartbroken because our season was over and we didn't
Mm-hmm.
go as far as we would have liked, and essentially my OHL career had come to an end. So it's an emotional time. It's
Right.
4 big years of your life, and I really enjoyed it, and to see it come to an end, I was kind of a little bit upset and a little bit emotional. And I remember after the last game, we lost out to St. Mike's. My parents and stuff were there, and it was pretty emotional. And it was like a day or two later, I got a call from my agent at the time and said Lowell was looking for a goalie in the AHL and wanted to know if I'd be willing to make the trip down to join the team for the last few games of the season. And that was something that back then it wasn't as common. Now it's a little bit more common. You see that happen a lot. A lot of guys go up to the American League when their junior years are over, but back then not a ton of guys used to get a chance to do it. So I was pretty excited. I went down, and again, I know Lowell wasn't a great team. They weren't making playoffs, and we had I think 3 games in 2.5 days there to finish off the season. And I ended up getting thrown into a game for the third period in St. John against the St. John Flames, and I think I gave up 4 goals in the period. But so if you look at my stats, they're not great. Like an
It's
average
not
of
a
like
great line.
12 goals for the game. But yeah, I know I played the third period there, and it was good. Again, it was my first taste of pro, and my
Sure.
first shot on goal was a clear cut breakaway from center ice. So which that one I did end up stopping, but a few power play goals after that, and a couple other goals, and that was it. But it was a wake up call, I think. It's a different game there, and obviously there
Yeah.
was some things I had to do to get myself ready to get to that level. And but again, it was another kind of stepping stone for me and another good experience. And that was something I got to do. That was prior to going to Buffalo's camp and prior to going to university. And it's a good measuring stick to kind of see where you are and see where you need to be to get to the next level. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
good experience as well there.
Yeah. So along the way, you definitely would have had your share of coaches, whether it's goalie coaches, head coaches. Do you have one or two that really stand out? Do you have like sort of like the one guy who was maybe the mentor that, whether it was keeping you in the right mindset, or just something that really tweaked the way you played, something about your style? Did you have like that type of a figure, or maybe a couple?
Yeah, I had a couple. I had one coach that comes to mind, like a head coach that wasn't goalie specific, but I always thought he was one of the best head coaches I played for, and that was Jim Holton, who I played for part of my first year in Mississauga before he got let go, and then we reconnected in Belleville. He was the head coach when I went to Belleville, and he was always a great kind of mentor for me, and I always respected kind of the way he managed his players, and I think he had a psychology degree, and he kind of knew who he could kind of push their buttons and who you kind of had to, stroke their ego a little bit. And you mentioned Matt Stajan's name a little bit earlier. I remember one time we were in Belleville, and Stajan wasn't having a great game, and the coach there, Jim Holden, came in and kind of tore a strip up one side of stage and down the other, and right in front of everybody in the room. And I couldn't believe it. That was me. I probably would have, folded like a cheap tent. I would have been pretty upset. And I don't know how I would have responded, but Stajan ended up and going out and scoring 3 goals, in the remainder of the game. And he knew that that's what it took to get Stajan going. And then for a guy like me, he'd call me in the office sometimes and he'd say, hey, Molesy, how's it going? And, how's everything? And I could kind of sense what he was getting at without him calling me out. And I'd say, well, I know I haven't been playing that well lately. And, I know I can do better and I've got to change a few things. He'd say, yeah, it's not a big deal. And, if you need anything, let me know. And that'd be kind of it. And that was his way of kind of letting me know that, he kind of wanted a little bit more out of me and I wanted more out of myself. And that was just the best way
just a check in, a little refresher.
That support used to kind of give me the confidence to kind of want to do better, and kind of, just that support he gave me kind of wanted me to, play a little bit better and kind of just do well for him. And that was just, I always thought he was a great coach. He went on to coach in the NHL as an assistant, a couple different places. And he's I believe the head coach and GM in Charlottetown in the Q right now, but he was one of the best coaches I had. And as far as goalie coaches, again, they weren't as prevalent back.
That's true.
In our era as they are now. Now they're like, they're full time on every team, and every team has one on their staff. And a lot of times they travel with the team and, go to all the games and do video, and it's a different time, as we know. But I had a guy in the Ottawa area here that my parents kind of found when I was about 15, 16. His name was Tom Dempsey. He ended up going on to work with the Ottawa 67s a little bit. He actually coached with the Cape Breton Screaming Eagles for at least a couple of years when Marc-Andre Fleury was there. So he had a little bit of contact there with Fleury in his younger years. So, but Tom was always great. He didn't pick up goaltending until he was in his 40s. Never played a position as a youngster, but just real analytical mind and really broke the game down. And he was really good, for me at that stage of my life and my career. He was really good. And then another guy who, I worked, with and worked for many years. I think it's probably how you and I first came into contact, was John Elkin.
Yep.
So, John's obviously one of the better goalie coaches around, and he's had a lot of experience working with a lot of pro goalies. And I never actually worked with John before actually going to work at his hockey school. So it wasn't until after I started working for him that I started training with him. But he had a big part in my career there as well, kind of as my junior years turned into the pro years. So I would come back and work at his goalie school every summer and train with him at lunchtime. And again, he's one of the better goalies in the game and good at keeping up on the modern trends and kind of the new innovations. So,
yeah, I know from watching John and from going to the camps, I would go and bring equipment. We'd talk to the kids. We'd do a whole sort of like a bit of an introduction into new equipment and things like that. And I remember like John always had sort of this intensity about him, and it was very much, I always felt like he was very much just, he stayed in a zone. And maybe that's part of the key to it is he can get everybody sort of on board that way as well. But certainly when you look around, there's a lot of successful goalies who have come out of that camp. So he's definitely another good one. Wow. So I think the most interesting sort of facet of your game, we're in 2004, the height of reality television, and someone decides to make a show about hockey and put some players who I guess haven't signed pro contracts and let them sort of audition themselves and find a way into a Canadian NHL organization that was making the cut. And you were one of the finalists. You made it all the way through. Can we talk a little bit about that? What that was like? Sort of a tryouts on TV and how you worked, how you went through that.
Yeah, sure. It was kind of funny how it came about. I just finished my first full year at university there at St. FX. We won a national championship, and I didn't mention it earlier, but I wasn't too crazy about going to Canadian university. I really wanted to start my pro career after junior hockey, but a lot of people talked me into going to university to take advantage of my school package offered through the OHL. And if you don't use it within a certain amount of time, then you kind of lose it and it gets wasted. So I was kind of coaxed into going to university kind of a little bit reluctantly, and I ended up going. Like I said, we had a really good year. We won a national championship, and I kind of, even after that point, I kind of said to myself, I kind of want more. I didn't enjoy that much the academic side of it at the time, and I was more kind of laser focused on the hockey. And it was tough when you play Canadian university. I think it was a 28 game schedule, and you're used to playing, like a 68 game schedule, kind of in junior, and pro schedules, and upwards of 80 or 82 games, some leagues. So, it just didn't seem like enough hockey for me. And I'm one of those guys where I just, eat, slept, and, bred hockey my whole life. So I wanted more hockey. And it was after my first year at St. FX, I called home and I was talking to my dad on the phone, and he said that he had heard of this reality TV show starting up, and, there's going to be open auditions all across Canada. And he said he had signed me up for the tryouts in Ottawa, which is where my family was living at the time. And he said, I signed you up for it. He said, I think it was $50 or $55, and it was at the rink where the Sens play. So he said, it's up to you. Think about it. If you want to go, I thought it'd be cool for you, to get to skate where the Sens play. You've never skated at that rink before. And, who knows what'll happen. But, if you don't want to go, I understand. And I'm out $50 or whatever, not the end of the world. So
sure.
I thought about it and I said, I don't know, I considered myself a, half decent goalie. And I was like, this kind of sounds a little bit Mickey Mouse, and I can imagine what some of my friends are going to think, and I don't know. And so I kind of let it, sink in a little bit. And I started, asking around about it and learning a little bit more about it. And then I found out the two coaches on the show were going to be Scotty Bowman and Mike Keenan,
right,
who are obviously no joke. So I was like, right away, that gives the show a lot of credibility. And then, the more I talked to a lot of my friends and teammates over the years, I found out like a lot of guys were going to be auditioning and trying out for it, and guys who had been drafted to the NHL before, guys who had played pro games that were kind of between contracts. And so once I started to learn that a lot of these guys were going to try out, I said, you know what, I may as well go for it. And I think something like 10,000 people tried out all across Canada, and they were going to pick 68 players to go on the show. So I just kind of said, what the heck, I'll go. I don't know how they're going to narrow this down. I find it hard to believe I'll get picked, at the end of it with all the players all across Canada. I don't know how they're going to do it. But anyway, I went, gave it a try. I went out in Ottawa. It was a kind of a elimination style tryouts. And I went, in the morning, and then you come back in the afternoon and then come back in the night. And then they said, we'll get back to you in a couple of weeks or whatever. And I remember I was working for John at the time, and I was doing his Montreal camp when I got the phone call saying that I'd been selected to go on the show, and they wanted to know if I'd be available. They were filming it in Vernon, British Columbia, not too far from Kelowna.
Yeah.
And it was, I believe it was a 3-week long filming. So again, I was working for John, and I had committed to work for the whole summer. So I had, asked John if he was okay if I, ended up going to the show for a few weeks, and, he was more than happy to accommodate. So, but yeah, that's how it kind of played out. And I went out and we filmed the show, and like you said, it was kind of at the height of reality TV. And I remember we had to, sign a contract similar to like Survivor and stuff, where you couldn't kind of disclose afterwards, what happened, or else you could.
No spoilers.
They threaten you with all these lawsuits and stuff. And, I was still pretty young, so pardon me. Took it kind of serious. But the way it worked is they filmed the entire show right up to the finale, and then they sent everybody home. So then I ended up going back to St. FX for my second year of school, and which was kind of cool because St. FX is a small campus. There's only about I think 5,000 students. And the show show aired every Tuesday night on CBC. So it was kind of cool. Everybody around campus would watch it, and kind of, it was a small school, so there was a lot of support there. And then, people were pressing on me, trying to find out if I had won the show. And truthfully, I didn't know. I knew at that point that I had made it to the finale, but the finale was going to be live around Christmas time in Mississauga. So I knew I made it to the finale, but I didn't know if I was one of the winners or not at that point. And then, as it played out, I went to the finale in Mississauga, which was almost like a skills competition kind of finale.
Okay.
And they had the 6 Canadian NHL teams there at the time. Each had a representative there from the organization. Most of them had the GM there. And then at the end of the episode, they had a draft where each Canadian team drafted one player off the show to go to main camp. So that's how it played out. I ended up being the only goalie picked. I got drafted by the Ottawa Senators. So that was an invitation to their main camp. So that was a great experience. It was really cool. It's like, I don't want to sound ungrateful, but it would have been nicer if it was like obviously a contract or something. Like,
yeah,
a lot of the guys who were on the show had been to an NHL training camp before. Like, I had previously gone to Buffalo's camp the year prior. So, I felt like if coming off a really good year at university, I probably would like to think I could have maybe got another walk on at another NHL camp, but this was just kind of an interesting way to do it. And, it ended up working out, and I went to Ottawa's camp, but again, it was very similar to Buffalo. They had 6 goalies at training camp, and 5 goalies were already currently under contract. So they had their 2 NHL guys, their 2 AHL guys, and a guy going to the East Coast League. So they just didn't have a spot for me there. And then I ended up kind of making the decision at that point to kind of strike while the iron was hot and leave school. I had some other opportunities come up in the professional ranks. So I left school at that point, and I joined the Phoenix Roadrunners in the East Coast Hockey League, which was a new expansion team that season. So I guess I have a little bit of a history here of playing for some expansion teams. But yeah, so I did that. I left university after the 2 years to go seek out some opportunities to play professionally. And that's, through making the cut, I went to Ottawa's camp and, got a little bit of exposure there to, some other opportunities, and kind of parlayed it into that. So.
Yeah, that's it's amazing to think, and again, you said, you didn't really know about it at first when you first heard about it. Is this like a real thing? Is this going to be gimmicky? And then obviously, you find out that it's pretty legit. And then like you go there and you win the damn thing. So, I mean, if you were worried at all that anyone was going to say anything about it, well, you were the best guy there. So you really don't have, no one has anything really much that they can say about that. And yeah, and again, it turned out to be another opportunity for you, even if it didn't produce, a contract or something like that. At least it was another experience for you, another chance to grow, another chance to, be on a team. I mean, that would have been, is that like when Dominic Hasek was with the Senators?
Yep. Yeah, so Hasek was there and Emery. Those were their 2 main goalies.
There you go.
So yeah, it was cool. Like, actually, I got to spend quite a bit of time with Dominic Hasek during training camp. We had our lockers side by side, and we got to kind of know each other a little bit. And he was really good to me, so I was really fortunate for that and thankful. And yeah.
Speaking of intense guys on the ice, right?
Yeah, like, well, you'd appreciate this, like, as an equipment guy. Like, he was wearing like TPS at the time.
Yep.
And he was so anal about his equipment, and he had these like 2 little ladies from like the TPS factory that they'd come in for training camp, and like there was a method to everything that Hasek ever did. Like, if you look at the way like he taped the knob on his stick, I don't know if you ever kind of noticed that.
Yeah.
He'd do like a big ball, and he'd put it kind of on the front of the knob, and then he'd tape it so that when he went paddle down, the shaft, the shaft of your stick would be closer to the ice. So
he could push it down.
Yeah, he could push it down, and the knob wouldn't kind of get in the way. And every little piece of equipment, he had a little square here, a little block there, a little flap here, a little, like, there was all these little things that he had, and he was so intricate and so, detailed and dialed into all these little things. But it was kind of funny to watch. Like, he literally had a couple of the staff members from TPS come to Ottawa, and they were working on, little pieces of his pants and pads and everything, kind of, right on site while he was there. So. And then another thing too, like, I obviously have a great amount of respect for Hasek and the the imprint that he left on the game and the position. But I'll be honest, like the first number of years I watched him, I know there's other people that kind of felt the same way. Like, this guy's just, he's full of crap and he's out there flopping around. And
this guy won't last.
I'm like, this is not going to hold up. And honestly, I don't think it was until I really got to share a net with him at Ottawa's training camp where I, when you're in the net, you take, 15 or 20 shots and then you jump out and the other guy. So I was off to the side watching Hasek kind of read plays and read shooters as they were coming in. And I just gained a whole nother level of respect for him. Like, there'd be guys coming in on 2-on-1 and like, he used to be kind of cheating. And then all of a sudden he knew the pass was coming. He'd already be like halfway there before the pass even went. Or a guy would come down and just tee one up like low blocker from like the hash marks. And like most of us would just drop to the butterfly, try to kick a leg, get anything on it. And he would literally just take one step to the right and stay standing and just take it in the pads. And it was just like mind blowing to me. I'm like, I always thought it was kind of like the Wayne Gretzky of goaltending, just the way he read the play and the way he kind of read situations and he, read different players' releases. Like he was kind of really dialed in like that. It was kind of fun to watch. But like I said, all that thoughts and opinions I had of him just kind of being full of crap kind of went out the window when I had a chance to kind of actually watch how he operates and how he kind of reads things. It was quite impressive to watch.
Yeah, I know. I've always sort of described the way I think about Dominik Hasek is, it's obviously a very difficult style to copy. You can't really, to say there might never be another guy quite like him, especially even further forward in today's era of play. But I think really like he kept the puck out as much with sheer will as he did with like his own just technique and skill. Like he willed the puck out of the net, and it was his determination, I think, and I guess like you're saying, a bit of his vision, his ability to dial into the play, those other things that really separated him from basically everyone else in that era besides maybe a couple other guys. It was definitely one of the greats. I don't think anyone out there is going to have him outside of their top five. And so after Ottawa, the next stop you made in terms of a shot at a big club was the New York Islanders, and I think you were a part of their organization at least for a couple of seasons.
Yeah, so like I said, after I didn't stick around in Ottawa, I left to go play in the East Coast League. That was my first full year of professional hockey, and I went down to Phoenix Roadrunners, which was a great experience. Obviously, a great place to live, a great place to play. It's kind of, I felt pretty spoiled. You're down there. There's palm trees everywhere, and it was beautiful down there. So I played the majority of my first full year there. Again, like I said, we're an expansion team, and it turned out we weren't going to make the playoffs. And I was having a fairly good year as a rookie, on a personal level. And another team in our division there in San Diego had lost a couple of their goalies to injuries and call-ups, and they were going to make the playoffs. So they inquired about trading for me from Phoenix to join San Diego for the remainder of the season. And I know initially Phoenix didn't want to do it because they had plans to bring me back the following season. So I remember they called me in the office and said, that we're kind of thinking about doing this, but we want to work out a deal with San Diego that we basically just loan you there for the rest of the year. That would give you a chance to go there, get a little bit of playoff experience, which will help you when you come back to us next year. And hopefully we make the playoffs. So now you've had a little bit of playoff experience under your belt, but we don't want to do it unless you're willing to do it. So I thought, as nice as Phoenix was, I was like, San Diego's even nicer.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, sure. Like, it'd be a great chance to play in the playoffs. And so I went off to San Diego to finish that season. And when that season came to an end, my coach that I had at St. FX, Danny Flynn was his name. He was really close with Ted Nolan. They coached together in the OHL back in the 90s, won a few Memorial Cups together. And Danny contacted me that summer. Him and I had a great relationship. Like I said, we won a national championship together at St. FX University. And he had asked me if I had committed to any NHL training camps, after that first year of pro. And I said, not yet. I said my agent was working on it. And, hopefully I'd get a chance to go to another camp. This would be kind of the year after I went to Ottawa. And he said, well, just sit tight. He's like, it's not for sure yet, but we think Ted Nolan's going to get the head coaching job with the Islanders. And if he does, he's asked me to come along with him. And, I'm going to, I know you deserve it. And I know, what you're capable of. And I'm going to lobby really hard to try to get you an invite to training camp. And he said, I can't promise or guarantee anything, but, I can make sure that if you come to camp that you get a fair shot and you get a fair look, like you deserve. And, that's all you can really ask for as any player is just to get
sure.
a fair look. And so anyway, that's what happened is Ted Nolan got the coaching job. Danny Flynn went to be his assistant, and I ended up being fortunate enough to be invited as a walk-on. And it was kind of came full circle because the Islanders were doing their training camp that year remotely in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia.
So, back to the East Coast again.
Back to the East Coast, and it was kind of fitting. That's actually where my dad is born and raised, in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, which is a small little town there, not a lot of people know of. So it was kind of funny that it just happened to be, a place where my dad was from, not too far from St. FX, where I'd gone to university a couple of years prior. And then obviously the connection I had with Danny Flynn. So it was just kind of like all the stars aligned. I ended up having the absolute best training camp I could have ever asked for. I was really happy with the way things went, and basically kind of forced their hand a little bit. And they ended up signing me to a contract there following training camp. So, and then I ended up playing 3 seasons in the organization, mostly between the East Coast League and the American Hockey League. But I did get a chance to go up for a few games with the Islanders in 2008 when Rick DiPietro was injured. So that was kind of like the highlight of the.
Which time?
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Yeah. So, but that's how kind of that worked out with the Islanders. So then I ended up going, 3 training camps there with them. So again, just all that previous experience in Ottawa and Buffalo kind of helped me prepare for that. And it's like everyone tells you, it's a process. So
yeah,
I look back at my career there, and I was in the Ottawa area. They never had a junior A draft. They have a junior A draft here, I should say. Sorry, and I never got drafted to that. I ended up making it as a 16-year-old as a walk-on, and then I went to Mississauga there and played on an expansion team. And like you said, looking at the numbers there, we were the last place team in Canada, and never got drafted to the NHL, went to Canadian University, ended up going on a reality TV show. And, so I look back now and I'm kind of proud of the way, things went. Like nothing was ever easy for me. I never really, did things the easy way, but, there's lots of adversity through the years. And, it's like they say, you just kind of persevere and keep working hard and have a good attitude. And,
well, I mean, it would have been easy. It would have been easy just to give up, or it would have been easy just to say, you know what, I had a good run, 4 years in the OHL. We just got beat by St. Mike's, and I'll go to school and but to keep trying for it, and to keep on your track. I mean, even that's something to be said. Just the level of determination and the ability to sort of stick with something, and obviously, it kept yielding results for you. So there's something to be said for that, to like sort of betting on yourself a little bit. You could have stayed at Canadian University, but you wanted more, and you kind of went for it. When you were with this was just something that just popped in my head. When you were with the Islanders, did you get to know Rick DiPietro fairly well?
Yeah, pretty good actually. He was my roommate in training camp that first year in Nova Scotia. So we roomed together for 2 weeks. The funny thing is that year that I ended up signing with him was the year that he signed his
15-year deal.
Yeah, the $67.5 million for 15 years or whatever. So they always joke, I just got whatever was left. I mean, I just signed for working minimum or whatever. But
you got the point something.
But yeah, he was definitely a character. If anybody, anybody who's kind of followed him throughout his career, back when he was kind of coming in the league and in the league, he was definitely a character and kind of a polarizing figure. And he was a first overall pick, and he was, quite loud and outspoken and confident. And but he was like that in the room, but behind closed doors, he was actually, really good with me, and really helpful, and kind of took me under his wing a little bit. But the second you leave the hotel room and you get in the locker room, he'll be the first one kind of ripping on you in front of everybody and making jokes. But that was just kind of his personality. And like I said, he was good to me, and I'm thankful for that. And he's another guy who loved his equipment. I'm sure it's well documented over the years. He was always pretty flashy and trying different things. So that was kind of fun too, to kind of watch, alongside with some of the stuff he was doing.
Yeah, I think DiPietro in his era, it might be the goalie who is sort of the least fairly judged, because obviously the way he come into the league, a first overall pick, this is the Islanders had Roberto Luongo already in the system at the time when he was drafted. They ended up moving off of him, and they give him the net. And realistically, when he was healthy, he was a good goalie, and he did put up some really good numbers and had good seasons. Was an all-star, and I think when you look at like with the contract that he signed, it's so outlandish, the time and the money, and unfortunately it all sort of came apart for him, and again with the injuries and the health was the main thing. And I think there needs to be sort of be a story told about him and how he was in the game, not just sort of like internet meme culture or whatever.
Yeah.
That because again he was a good goalie, and he was a great personality too. You're right. And yeah, again, he just never really he never really got the fair shake, I think, just because of all of those extenuating factors.
Yeah, I mean, it's too bad because like obviously the guy's done well for himself financially. That's part of the
Sure,
brunt of the meme jokes. He's still getting
can't feel
paid,
too bad for him.
but it's too bad because he's one of those guys that was just such a competitor that like as nice as the money is, like I know that deep down it probably kills him that he's not able to compete
Yeah.
and compete at that level and kind of do what he loves. So it's too
Mm-hmm.
bad. And I would have loved to have seen him stick around the game at some capacity. I know he did a little bit of commentary for the Islanders for a little bit, following his career there, but he seems to have kind of disappeared a little bit now from what I can tell. But it's too bad because it would have been, like you said, he's got the personality, and it would have been kind of nice to see him around the game. And I think he was kind of controversial and always good to spark up discussions. So it would
Mm-hmm.
have been nice to have him. But anyway.
Yeah. So if we move off of that, then we get sort of to winding down the latter part of your career. You made a few other stops along the way,
Mhm.
and now you find yourself, you've played some Senior A, and we've even won a championship there as well. Dundas Real McCoys. It's OHA Senior A. Is that what it's still called?
Yep. Yep.
And for those who maybe don't know, can you describe that league a little bit and some of the players that wind up there?
Yeah, so it's like the highest level of like I think non-professional hockey you can play like in Canada. So it's called Senior A. That you compete for the Island Cup, which is a national championship all across Canada. So there's a few different leagues throughout Canada that all compete to win their league to go to the Island Cup. But yeah, it's mostly a lot of like retired professional junior, major junior college guys who still want to play, who kind of not necessarily don't want to go to play men's league, and it's just a little bit more organized where you don't have to worry about some of those guys who are out to try to kind of prove a point or make a name for themselves. Although you get the odd one here and there, but it's a
Sure.
little bit more organized, a little bit more structured. I'm pretty fortunate. Like the organization I play for in Dundas, I've been there the whole time. I think it's been like 7 years now. We have a great owner. He does a lot to kind of keep the league going, and the thing I like about it is, it kind of reminds me still of playing junior pro. Like we have our own locker room at the rink. We can keep our gear there. They do your laundry. Fans still come out to the game. They pay us a little bit of gas money. So it's better. For me, it's a little bit more rewarding than playing, men's league. So
Right.
um,
Right.
yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind of,
that's. I mean, you're staying in hockey. You're staying competitive. I know for a lot of players, especially goalies, like once they retire, a lot of them never play goal again. They just can't face the type of shot that they need to face in order to like really have that intensity or have that level of competitiveness that maybe that they're looking for.
yeah, kind of like before this opportunity to play Senior A popped up, I didn't really know a whole lot about it, to be honest. But I was always of that same kind of mindset that when I'm done playing professionally, I just want to go out, I want to score goals, I want to wheel around,
Yeah.
like a lot of goalies do, right? And that's a big part of it, like you said, is like even I've gone to Shinny over the years, there people asking me to play. And again, I'm not putting myself above anybody, but a lot of times you go out to those skates and there's quite a wide variety of skill level. And, some guy comes down and he's skating on his ankles and he does this big wind up and he's trying to go top corner and he shoots a muffin 5-hole and happens to kind of elude you. And then next thing you know, he's celebrating.
He's got his hands in the air.
Yeah, he's skating by, chirping you. And, I can't handle it.
Hey, what happened on that one?
I thought you played pro. Like you're brutal. And I'm like, oh.
All right.
So I did. I actually, when I first stopped playing, I joined a men's league as a defenseman, and I went out and I played for a year or two. And it wasn't until actually I got the job. I don't know if we were going to get into that or not, but when I started working for Reebok CCM, it was right around that time that Dundas contacted me. They were hosting the Allen Cup that year and wanted to know if I was interested in coming out to play. And like I said, it was right around that same time I just gotten the job with Reebok CCM. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they were coming to me as a rep. They had new products coming down the pipeline, goalie gear specifically, and they wanted to know if they could send me some prototypes or some demos and if I could get some guys to try it and get some feedback. And me, I'm like the biggest goalie equipment nerd around. And I was just like, I want to try it. It's not on the market yet. I need to try this. I got to be one of the first ones to try it. So it actually worked out well. It was right around that time that job came along that I got asked to play in Dundas, and it gave me an opportunity to get back in the net. And, it also gave me an opportunity to try out some of the equipment. And, like I said, I ended up going on to be a rep and selling the equipment. And by using kind of all the latest technology, kind of helped me with my job as well when I'm trying to, promote it to different players and try to get guys to understand the technology behind it. It really helped, having used it myself and kind of understand why things were done the way they were. So it all kind of fit together nicely at the time.
So that is another hat you did wear was rep. You did work some on the retail side, and then you did work, I guess maybe more so on the pro side. What was that like going from being a player to then servicing players?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, my goal was to make the NHL. As a kid growing up, I had tunnel vision, and that's all I wanted to do. I wanted to play hockey. I wanted to make the NHL. And then, like I said earlier, I always loved the equipment. So when it looked like I wasn't going to become a full-time NHL guy, that was always something that was kind of in the back of my mind. I thought I would love to be an equipment rep. I thought I'd be really good at it. I was really knowledgeable on the equipment and all the different, modifications and stuff guys did, custom features. So I thought, and I'd made some good contacts over the years as a player. So I always thought that would be a really good career for me following my playing career. So when I first stopped playing, that was kind of the first call I made was to CCM. And at the time they didn't have any openings. So they said, they'd keep me in mind, but at the time they didn't have anything available. And I ended up taking another job, completely unrelated industry, working for an energy company in Toronto. And then I was only there about 6 months. And then CCM gave me a call back and said that they had a retail job opening up in the GTA for a tech rep. And I didn't know too much about that. And it kind of wasn't necessarily the area that I wanted to go or that I was comfortable with. I had never really done a lot of work at the retail level. My focus was kind of more on, the pro side of things, because that was kind of the world that, I kind of lived in for the previous number of years. So that's kind of where I saw myself going. But I had a couple of really good meetings with Reebok, prior to getting hired, and they ended up kind of carving out kind of a hybrid position for me where I did some tech rep, responsibilities on the retail side. And then they gave me a handful of pro teams to start to service them on the pro side. So I kind of got to do a little bit of both. And I did that. I think it was a little bit under a year before a position opened up as a full-time pro rep. So I ended up transitioning into that, where I was just the pro goalie rep for North America. So there was only two of us, myself and another individual there in Quebec. And we split everything, the NHL, AHL, East Coast League, the Canadian Hockey League, NCAA, everything. So it was pretty busy, and that's kind of ultimately what ended up leading to me kind of walking away after about 4 years, was just the time commitment and
a lot of travel.
So again, I always thought it would be the perfect dream job for me. And it just got to the point where I was in my life that it was like, as a player, you always, play hockey your whole life. You miss out on a lot of family functions and get-togethers and time with your friends and different things like that. And I always kind of told myself when I'm done playing hockey professionally, I'd like to kind of make myself more available for my family and friends and kind of make up for some of that lost time. And then I got into this job with Reebok CCM, which I loved, and I felt like it was a great fit for me. And after doing it a few years, especially when you're on the pro side, it's a lot of nights and weekends. It's a lot of time spent at airports and hotels, kind of on your own. And just at the stage I was in my life, I decided to make a change there after about 4 years. But again, another one of those things, I wouldn't change it. Like I had a great experience, and I got to live out, what I thought was, my dream job for a few years. And I had a lot of fun doing it, met a lot of great people. And I still kept a lot of contacts on the retail side, and I still used to come in to Just Hockey for the goalie days, and I attend a lot of the goalie days and do things like that. So it was really fun. Like I said, I got to meet a lot of great people, and it was a great kind of few years of my life.
Yeah, it's a great way to stay in the game, I guess, for a lot of them. And again, with all of your travels, sort of being in the room, is a way to kind of stay with it. And then and when you have sort of the type of resume that you did, there's a little bit of instant credibility with the players that you're working with, and there's guys probably still that were still in the room when you were doing it, who you either played with or against, and it's just like, hey, Molesy, type of thing. So definitely good. And so now we move into your next stage in life, your current stage in life, as I hinted at the beginning with Halton Regional Police. I guess so. Policing, I guess, it's a legacy position for you, with it being in the family. What drew you to it? I mean, maybe besides the obvious, but how'd you choose that path?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that was always on my mind. Like you said, my dad was an RCMP officer growing up, and something that I always thought about. Is something my dad kind of encouraged me to look into. He always thought that I had the right mindset for it and a good personality for it. And truthfully, when I first stopped playing hockey professionally, I looked into doing it, and then it was I just started doing some of the testing for it, and then John Elkin had offered me a full-time job to run his range throughout the winter at Iceland Arena. So John kind of took me out one day for lunch and kind of put a little proposal together, and it was quite enticing at the time, and it was a way to stay in hockey. And the way he said it was a safer job, and still got to stay in hockey. And I ended up taking that job. I didn't quite enjoy it just because of the scheduling. Like, you're working with kids, and kids are in school all day, so you're working basically all afternoons and evenings. And I was a young single guy, and looking to eventually have a family, and I couldn't really meet anybody or go to dinner or drinks or dates or anything. So it was that was kind of challenging for me. But yeah, and then life just kind of happens. A couple other opportunities came up. The job with CCM, so it kind of just all got pushed to the back burner, the policing thing. And then after years of kind of doing different sales jobs and just kind of never really feeling fulfilled, I decided to kind of revisit the idea. And I got started a little bit later in life. I was 36 when I got hired on, but it's not that uncommon, and it's
probably not a bad thing that you've lived a life. I'm sure that's something that they probably, not necessarily that they look for right away, but certainly if they take like a fully formed person, and hand them a gun, it's always it's probably good that you can figure out exactly who this guy is.
Yeah, no, it's good. Like, it's obviously, having life experience helps me out a lot in these, in a lot of the situations that we deal with. But it's good. It takes kind of a mix of all sorts of people. So it's it's nice that I got into the career kind of later in life and had a bit of that life experience. And I think it does, play in my favor a lot, in my role. So again, I got started a little bit later, but I really enjoy it. And one of the big things for me is I've always, been really involved in a lot of the communities where I played. I've done a lot of community service. I've done a lot of volunteer work over the years. Especially when I was in the OHL, I ended up winning Humanitarian of the Year for for the whole league when I was in Belleville for a lot of the work that I did there in the community. So it's something I've always had a passion for. And I just really enjoy, interacting with people and helping people. And it just kind of was a natural kind of transition for me. And again, I always tell people, I was out yesterday with a few friends and they're always asking how it is. And I say it really is like the closest thing I've ever had to being on a sports team or being on a hockey team. And, you're on a platoon with your shift and you've got, the same people, and, you're kind of going to battle every day together, and you win together, you lose together, and you kind of support each other. And
you're all wearing the same jersey.
yeah, it is. It's nice. And it's kind of cool. Like you go to the station kind of in your street clothes, and then you got your locker there, and you get changed into your uniform there, and you get all kitted up. And it really does feel like you're part of a team again. And it almost feels like you're, in sports. And but it's good. I really enjoy that aspect of it. And it's been really rewarding. I've had a lot of great experiences there too, and met a lot of great people. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. They always say, if you can go to work and it doesn't feel like, work, you're doing something right. But
exactly.
I go and it's, I interact with people, and, most of the interactions, we're pretty fortunate in Halton region. We have a pretty good rapport with the community, and we're pretty well received. So it's, most of the time people are happy to see us, and, happy with the end result. But it's, no, it's been good. It's rewarding. I like it. It's, it's an honorable profession, and, it's hopefully try to get 25 years under my belt and retire.
Yeah, exactly. And you're right. Definitely, especially like you said, you're not in a big city. You're not at a busy district right in Toronto or something like that. So it's a lot of community, community stuff where you're dealing with, specific people. And then you sort of have that bit of a feeling where it's, because it's a little bit smaller, that, it doesn't feel like cops and robbers every day, basically, and it shouldn't have to, it shouldn't have to. So if we're looking back a little bit, maybe on hockey, maybe I should have asked you this before, but this is something I've talked to a couple guys about. If you had to say, favorite rink or favorite couple of rinks, do you want to go down memory lane and talk about a couple of the places you played?
I was pretty fortunate. Like early on in my career, St. Mike's used to play at a Maple Leaf Gardens, and I grew up a diehard Maple Leafs fan. Especially like especially in the early '90s, like Felix Potvin was my guy. Like that was one of the more influential athletes of my generation there. So for goalies, I know a lot of us kind of around our age group really looked up to him at that age. So back in the early '90s, there, 92, 93, 93, 94. They had some really good years. So it was really cool for me, like coming to the OHL and St. Mike's, playing out of Maple Leaf Gardens, and just to be on the ice and, looking around and knowing like, oh my God, like Felix Potvin was like standing right here, or Johnny Bauer, or like, some of the other greats over the years. And like, you're looking up at the rafters and you're looking up at a lot of the banners and that kind of thing. And it was just kind of surreal to be there. So that was always kind of cool. I always really enjoyed playing in Kitchener at the auditorium there. I don't know what it was. And I guess it's kind of funny, like people have referred to it over the years as like the mini Maple Leaf Gardens. So maybe that's why, but
could be.
I always had some really good games there. I really enjoyed it. Trying to think what else. I don't know.
Did one rink have your number?
I think probably a lot of them did, especially in the early years. I can't remember, but yeah, it's crazy to think back to like how long ago that was.
Sure.
Like it doesn't feel like that long ago. Like my first year in the OHL was like 99, 2000, right? Like that's like
we're over 20 years now.
Yeah. So it's crazy. But yeah, no, those were some of the ones I enjoyed playing. And obviously it was really cool too, coming to Mississauga. The Hershey Center was brand new. It had just opened the year before. So at the time that was state of the art, as far as major junior arenas go, like that was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's lots of rinks, and then same thing at the NHL level too. Even working at Reebok, it was cool kind of going around to see a lot of the NHL rinks and kind of being behind the scenes and in the locker rooms. And that was always kind of fun for me to kind of peek behind the curtains a little bit.
Yeah. Did you have a goalie nemesis, or did you have a shooter that you can think of that
have my number? I don't know. I felt like my nemesis, and I don't say this in a bad way. I think you probably know him too, but with like Andy Kyoto.
Oh yeah.
You know Andy, right? So like we were always like pretty close. Like he's a year younger than me, but we always played against each other there in the OHL. And like I just look at like our last year of major junior, like we played together on the All-Star team. He was goalie of the year. I was one of the runners up. He was like a first team All-Star. I was a second team All-Star. We ended up, like I said, losing to St. Mike's there my last year junior. We lost in like 7 games.
Yeah.
I think like they won every game at St. Mike's. We won every game in Belleville, but St. Mike's had home ice advantage. They ended up beating us in game 7. I think it was like 3-1 with one was an empty net. So it was like 2-1. I think he was first star. I was second star. But then it was kind of funny. Like, and that's part of the reason I was like the year following that, I ended up going to Canadian University, and Andy ended up getting a shot and playing a handful of games in the NHL. So here I am at Canadian University, and I'm like, how is this happening? Like, this guy's in the NHL right now, and I'm like so far away down at Canadian University. And it was like, obviously I was envious, and he deserved it and he earned it. But it was just one of those things where I was like, I'm like, it was like, I was so close kind of behind him, but then all of a sudden I was so far away, like, at Canadian University. But that's just kind of the way it works out. I'm sure a lot of guys have stories like that. And, but yeah, that was it. And then as far as shooters, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of guys I faced in practice. I know Spezza was a guy who always kind of would give us a hard time.
Underrated shot, right? I think that's what everybody always says. Like a pass first player for a lot of his career, and great vision, a great playmaker. But when he wants to wind it up, or even if he's just walking in and letting a quick one go, like he's very accurate and can light goalies up just as easy as he can dish off.
Yeah, you see him do it quite a bit there too, but he has that like pump fake where he's the goalie, and then he'll move it another couple inches and then shoot it. And he'll catch you like short side or something and make you look stupid, but
change your angle and opens up some net.
Such a long stick and a long reach too. He could hold it out quite a ways, but yeah, it's hard on the spot. It's hard to think back of some of the guys who really had my number, but I'm sure there was quite a few.
Yeah, I'm sure. Hopefully, some of them will watch and they'll be screaming at their screens. I owned you, Molsey. I owned you.
Well, it's funny. I was cleaning out some stuff the other day, and I actually have for some reason, I have a couple autograph sticks from Spezza, and one of them actually says, "To Molsey, I run your show." He's
got a sense of humor too.
Yeah, I've got that at home kicking around somewhere. So
yeah. Well, I went through a couple. I tried to dig up some photos online to see some of the gear setups you have. I think the one I found that sort of is the coolest looking was in Belleville. You had the black and gold with the red trim on the Coho 580s. Do you have some memorable setups that you think of, or the gear you wish you had back?
Yeah, that was my favorite set by far, that black and gold one. And that was like when the 580s first came out. And I remember I was pretty lucky too, because I got traded to Belleville at the trade deadline in January, and those Cohos had come out like maybe like a month before, and nobody in the league had them yet because everybody had got a new set at the start of the year. So they were all rocking like 570s or like Heaton 10s or whatever. So nobody had those 580s. So I remember I got them in Belleville. I was like, I think one of the first or second guys to get them in the league because I got traded and my new team allowed me to get a new set. But yeah, that was my favorite set. The 580s were my favorite gear. I ran those into the ground. I had so many different color variations of those throughout the years. And I had 570s, 580s. I tried 590s. I ended up going back to 580s again. Even when Reebok came out with the Premier One, I just couldn't wear them. They were too stiff and flat, and it was just too far from what I was used to. And it was right at that same time that they changed the regulations from 12-inch pads to 11.
Yep.
So I remember my first year pro in Phoenix, the Reeboks came out and they were trying to get me those, and I just wanted 580s so bad. And they told me that they couldn't make them anymore because all the die cuts and everything were to 12 inches.
12-inch, not 11.
And I fought tooth and nail, and finally they agreed to make only a handful of guys hand cut 580s to the 11 inches. But they said like after this year, that's it. So I was one of the very few guys that got a chance to wear like 11-inch 580s. So that was kind of cool, but yeah, I was sad to see when those left.
Hey, maybe what we should do is get you to come by the store, and I'll let you try on some of the True gear if you want to go back fully Lefebvre.
Yeah, I love that. I'm pretty partial to this stuff, and that's what I'm most comfortable in. So yeah, it'd be kind of fun to see the new stuff.
Yeah, it's great. We got in some of the 12.2s. There's probably a pair there that'll fit you at least to throw it on with your skates, and
Mhm.
hopefully you'll get a good season in with Dundas. Hopefully, I know everyone's in a little bit of a holding pattern, but it's looking like maybe we'll be able to do some stuff, and hopefully you'll get out there. And I think I'm going to let you go now. I want to thank you for giving me your time. A few good stories. I think it's always great to take a walk down sort of memory lane and really look through the whole career and see how everything unfolds. Like we talked about coaches, we talked about the different teams along the way and the decisions you had to make, and obviously it's taken you this far so far, and hopefully we'll connect again and we can talk some more about what comes next and what you're going to be up to. So thanks again for joining me today, Mike.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime, Dana. I really enjoy the show there. Keep up the great work.
Thanks, pal. All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks for tuning in, and a big thanks to Mike for joining me today. Please remember to like and subscribe, and we'll let you know when more content is available. We'll see you next time on Got Hockey.